Ooh. Hey y'all, my name's Kennard. I'm an organizer with St. Louis Housing Defense Collective. And I'll pass it off to Juan, who looks like he was about to talk.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were going to go first, but I will go. My name is Juan, he, him. I'm also part of the collective. Um, and yeah, I kind of wanted to do, if anybody wanted to like share any feelings, how they're feeling today, 1 or 2 words, that would be great. So I am feeling hungry and like there's a feeling inside of my stomach right here. So that's it. Okay, I'll go to Sharon.
Hi everyone, my name is Sharon. I use she, her pronouns. So I'm going to talk a bit about the moratoriums. I'm going to talk about the local moratorium and the national moratorium. So the local St. Louis moratorium ends October 1st. Wait, am I doing something wrong?
Well, we just wanted to go around, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. My name is Sharon. I use she, her pronouns. Sorry.
Who's next? I guess I am. My name is Carmen. Um, I'm just a part of everything with St. Louis Mutual Aid, and I use she, her pronouns, and that is my son in the background.
Hello, everyone. I'm Aisha Johnson, tenant rights coordinator with Dutchtown South Community Corporation, also part of St. Louis Housing Collective, and I use she, her pronouns. I'll pass it on to Lou.
Hi, I'm Lou. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm just here listening and taking notes. And I will pass it to Kaya.
Hi, my name is Kaya. I use she, her pronouns. Yeah, and I'm here to listen and learn. I'm with the Dutchtown Carondelet Pod. Oh, and let's see. I will pass it to Anna, or is it Anna?
Thanks. Hi, I'm Anna, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm just here listening and learning and hoping to get plugged in and involved in lots of ways throughout the from St. Louis Mutual Aid. So, and let's see, I will pass it to Nichelle.
Hi, I'm Nichelle. I use she, her. I'm just your friendly tech support today. And I feel weird because I had to take a Benadryl because I accidentally ate something I was allergic to. So I'm just like, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. But I just feel weird because the Benadryl's starting to kick in. I'll pass it to Jeremy.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Yes. My name is Jeremy Wright. I'm from Springfield, Missouri. I'm just here, he, him, his, and I'm just here listening in. And I feel like I wish it were sunny today in St. Louis. I'll pass it on to Zandy.
Hi, I'm Zandi. I use she, her pronouns. Excited to get more plugged in with eviction defense stuff and feeling pretty good today. I slept in really late, so that was kind of nice. And I will pass it to Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris. I use he, him pronouns. I'm going to join to get more involved with housing and eviction defense. I'm probably gonna have to start working around 2:30, but I want to keep listening in the whole time and participate when I can.
Is there anybody else?
Let's see. I'll pass it to who hasn't gone yet.
I think Diana or Erica.
Yeah, pass it to Diana, sure.
Hi, I'm Diana, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also here to listen and learn and find out how to serve in and with my community. And I'm the grandma in the bunch. And I pass it to Erica.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right, it always takes a minute for my mic to warm up, so I had to like press it real early. But my name is Erica, and I'm with the Anti-Racism Organizing Collective, and I am here just to listen and get plugged in and see how AROC can support mutual aid and housing and eviction defense work. Katie, did you go yet?
Hi, I'm Katie. I use she, her, they pronouns. I'm in the Dutchtown area, and I'm feeling refreshed and prepared. And I'll pass it to Tess.
Hi, I'm Tess. I use she, her. And yeah, I'm just here to listen and learn. And I'll also be trying to correct any mistakes there are in the closed caption. I'll just put it in the chat if there's something that I can correct. And is there anybody who hasn't gone yet? Okay, I'll pass it to Sarah Sutton. Sorry.
Yes, you will pass it to Sarah. There are various Sarahs you could pass it to. I'm Sarah Sutton. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm feeling excited because my one friend's gonna have a baby in a month, and we're having like a baby shower, which is weird, but is a thing that people do and can be great, actually. Even in this, even within capitalism, it can still be okay to do things like that. So I'll pass it to other Sarah. There's only one other Sarah on here, I think.
Yep, I think it's just the two of us. Hi, I'm Sroz or Sarah, use she, her pronouns. And I don't know, I guess I like planned out my day today and then sort of over the course of doing it was like, oh, I guess this is just an entirely normal day in a pandemic, and sat with that for a while. And I will see if anyone hasn't gone yet.
That leaves John.
John? Yeah, I'm gonna pass it to John.
Thanks. I'm John. I'm with the UCity and Skinker Developer Pod, and I'm here to learn whatever I can to help people around me.
Great. Yeah. Kennard, did you want to pick up?
Yeah, I can start us off. So just to kind of get everybody an idea of what kind of situation we're in, since the first moratorium that we had issued in the city of St. Louis, I think that expired July 7th. The city, we had an estimated 18,000 evictions that we were looking at. Just for scale, the city normally goes through about 6,000 in a year. So about 3 times the amount that we're normally expecting. With a little bit of pressure, we've been able to secure a second moratorium and get that conversation started. And that one expired on September 1st. So the beginning of this month, but within a couple of days of that, the judge who issued the original moratoriums, not Draper, Juan, Sarah, Maisha, help me out.
Burleson.
Burleson.
Yeah. He issued another moratorium in the city, and that one is active until October 1st. Right now, as it is, evictions can't be processed. So that means that the sheriff can't execute those evictions right now. However, that doesn't mean that the courts can't and landlords can't still file evictions. So what we're looking at right now is a situation where there's this huge backlog of evictions that has been piling up basically probably since March or so, and it is getting larger by the day. And given that we have a national moratorium, which Sharon will talk about a bit later, that will stop a lot of people from getting evicted, but it doesn't stop everybody from getting evicted. There's still a few loopholes in the national moratorium that you'll hear about a bit later that don't protect people. There's also, with the national moratorium, there's a few penalties that the city-wide moratoriums, the local moratoriums don't have within them. What we've been hearing a lot of right now is landlords doing a lot of different types of illegal evictions. I don't need to go too in depth with it, but we've definitely heard like a lot of stories of landlords just taking it into their own hands and doing stuff like changing locks and stuff like that. But it even getting serious as to people getting into like a armed kind of confrontation type situation. So really without any sort of aid package that is, sent out to tenants to be able to provide for themselves, we're kind of in this situation, and it's only getting bigger as we move towards the end of the year. The city does have a rental assistance fund that was created using some of the CARES Act money that was issued out by the federal government earlier this year. Right now, we know there's been around 600 or so of those applications submitted to the city. We don't have a number how many of those that have been approved. At the end of August, that number was around 4, I think. So there's not a real effort being done to, really address this situation large scale, and that puts a lot of people in pretty tough situations. And I do have some of those numbers now all of a sudden because they're on the Google Doc. So looking at filings, there have been 2,005 filings in the St. Louis region since March 15th as of September 6th. 1,178 of those have been in the county and 827 in the city. So, that's the issue is while we do have these moratoriums in place, the big problem is that the courts are still operating and landlords are still filing these evictions on people. So while you can't physically be evicted legally right now until the end of the year, depending on your circumstance and if you qualify for the national moratorium, everything that you're hearing about this tidal wave of evictions is still a very real threat, and this isn't going to go away in November. This isn't going to go away in December, and this is going to be an even bigger problem in January. And I see somebody put in the chat, are they still having hearings? They are still doing hearings. So people can still be filed against, and hearings can still happen, and a judgment can be reached against you, regardless of if they can actually evict you. It'll just happen whenever the moratorium protection is up that you qualify for. So yeah, that's like the state of things right now that we're looking at. Does anybody have any questions about that? Just with that
I
starting.
would love to get some more information on this. These are the type of things that I do like to highlight and talk about on my platforms. 4, you said 4, so I'm still just sitting with that. So Julia, I might need to get another meeting with you so I can collect data so I can know when I go live what I'm talking about.
Yeah, thanks, Carmen. And if you wanted to connect or whatever platforms you have, and if if we could have someone on the collective and help you out there, that'd be awesome too. I just kind of wanted to say that, like, not only is while hearings are still happening, over the phone or on WebEx in the county and in the city, evictions are happening in St. Charles County, in Jefferson County, and more rural kind of places like that. And they are executing those evictions. And so they have those counties and jurisdictions, they have completely kind of disregarded this, also the state of, like, so the Supreme Court of Missouri put out like recommendations or guidelines to have in-person court hearings, and so in more rural places they're way more strict, and so what we're seeing is that there's a higher rate of evictions in those places per population. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Okay, moving up. So talking about some of the biggest players that are causing these evictions. The biggest problem is landlords, obviously, right? They're the ones evicting people. So without them, we wouldn't really have that problem. But landlords, looking at that comes in the form of 2 different types, and a couple of you were in the workshop that we had a couple weeks ago when we went over this. But they are corporate landlords, which are like your large property owners and developers. Like you see those that own like huge apartment complexes and stuff like that. A lot of those companies, all over the region, they own property all over the region. And a lot of the times they are the ones that file in bulk. So one that we've been engaging with a lot has been Sansone. So they have been one of the largest bulk filers of evictions in the city, but by no means are they the only ones. There's plenty of different property companies that do this, and it's kind of a rampant problem. And then your other class of landlords would be like your small private landlords, which are individuals who own the property and they're still filing evictions, just like the corporate landlords, except it's not quite in the same magnitude. Other players in this, looking at it, like this also falls on the city, right? So with this issue of the rental assistance, they've gotten this CARES Act money and have allowed the courts to still be processing against people. So it's kind of hard to, really say that, we're looking out for people when we have a moratorium in place, but at the same time, on the other hand, you're still continuing the machine to kick people out of their homes. So we can throw in the mayor's office into that as well. And then the main enforcement arm that people deal with when they are getting evicted is the sheriff's office. And our current sheriff right now is Vernon Betts. He just won re-election in this past election. But yeah, his office is the main office that goes out and actually does the evictions. That's the law enforcement arm that people come into contact with. And, like part of this thing, like, you know, we shouldn't separate, you know, the sheriff's office from the police. It's still a law enforcement arm. It's still displacing people forcefully as well. So I just want to, you know, be sure that we don't put them in a separate classification, just so you know, just because they're sheriffs. It's still law enforcement. It's still using the state to move people from their homes. Can folks think of other players that we have that are evicting people? I mean, we got landlords, we've got the city on the part of the rental assistance stuff, we've got the sheriff's office.
Thank you, Kennard. I'm thinking in a bigger scope. In Europe, it's been policy and national policy, so we're talking federal here, that mortgage banks cannot force people to pay their rent during COVID. So landlords don't need to evict because landlords don't have to pay the banks or the, you know, the Chase Manhattan and the big ones. And I just wondered what work might be done at the federal. I know feds are federal level, but in other words, it's a national policy that says we don't want people to have to worry about being homeless. And I wondered if there's been conversations with people who are involved in Europe, and because we're way behind in the US, and I'm just wondered. Thank you for your numbers and the sad, tragic story of the current affairs.
Yeah, I just want to address some comments in the chat real quick. There's also the unhoused population. The city is directly responsible for that. Just want to circle back to Elida Cruson to make sure she doesn't escape from this conversation, since the mayor's office is the office that passes the orders to evict all of the encampments that have happened in the city against CDC guidelines, by the way. Diana, to respond to what you had said, yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation a lot, you know, with each other, and like the reason that all this work is being done is because our government has failed us. Like that's what the hard truth of it is. Like our government has not provided a way for people to be able to pay their rent or anything like that. We had $1,200 issued to people back in March, and that's it. Like there's been nothing else. So yeah, I mean, the hard truth of it is that we have a dysfunctional government that doesn't take care of people. Let's see. So our next section, it looks like, is around, do you guys want to go into the process, or should we go into tenant rights?
Can I say something really quickly, and catch me if I'm off subject, but I think it was really good that you guys hit politics. I just think in this particular season, it is important that we understand who our allies are and what they're really willing to do in the gap to help this population of people. They have power, and now it's time for them to use it, or we need to like decide who we're voting for.
True. There's a mayoral race next year, conveniently enough. Don't vote for the one that we got right now. Good start.
I can't wait to see who we can get our collective power behind then.
Yeah.
Our mayor sucks.
It'll be interesting. I'm sure about 12.5 people will be running. But I guess we can go into the tenants' rights section. Maisha, if you want to go into that.
So hello, everyone. I'm Aisha Johnson, as I said before. Right now, during this time, tenants have been experiencing a lot of difficulties, disparities, and issues with how to handle themselves within a lease. Landlords have tried illegal lockouts. Landlords have been harassing to get folks out or to pay their rent. There is a process. First off, let's start with we all have rights. The rights don't stick as much as the landlord's rights within a lease, but because Missouri seems to be more prone to assist landlords than tenants. But within a lease, the tenant's rights is to pay rent on time, use reasonable care and not damage the property, properly dispose of the garbage, refrain from taking on additional occupants or subleasing without the landlord's written permission. A landlord's rights within a lease should be to make property habitable for the tenants when moving in, make the paid repairs due to ordinary wear and tear, and refrain from turning off any tenants' waters or electricity or gas. And we all know that folks are experiencing that during COVID. Also, to provide written notice to tenants when ownership has been exchanged or transferred to another landlord, and not unlawfully discriminating against the tenant. So there's many ways that a landlord can be going against your rights within a lease. When moving into a place, you should always walk through the apartment to make sure there's no damages, so you won't be responsible for them while within the lease. Also, be clear on what you're responsible to pay. Like if you're responsible for the mowing of the grass or the water bill, you need to make that clear who's responsible for those items. Also, like I said earlier, to sublease to someone, if the landlord is not notified of it, that can be another way that a landlord can try to terminate your lease because you let someone move in and they may not be qualified to live on the property. The familial status should not prevent you from being allowed to get in contract with a landlord, which is your lease. A lease is considered a contract between the landlord and a tenant. Like if there's two people to a room, so if it's a grandmother and a grandson, a landlord shouldn't be able to tell you, no, we can't rent to you because there's two people to a room. Your immigrant status should not be an issue. Your sexuality should not be an issue. As long as you qualify for the property, they should not discriminate against your familial status, your immigrant status. Also, there's a thing called steering. Steering is when you look at a property and you like a property and a landlord said, oh, well, this may not be a good fit for you. I have this property over here. Let me take you over here and see if you like this property. That property isn't what you came to look at. The property you came to look at should be what's available to you. If you qualify for everything before they were able to meet you in person, you should still be able to qualify after that. If you ever run into this situation, EHOG has a department that addresses issues like that. Also, with COVID, we've seen that landlords have been taking air conditioning out of folks' home, changing the locks on their doors, trying to evict them without filing in court. These are all illegal things. And you can reach out to EHOC, which is Equal Housing Opportunity Council. You can reach out to Legal Services of Eastern Missouri or Arch City Defenders. They all work in this area at addressing those issues. A lot of folks think once you get an eviction from the landlord that's it, you have to go to court and fight your case. That's not it. You can file a countersuit against your landlord, and you can then display your evidence that you have against the landlord. It is important that you do so if you do not have legal counsel, because you will not be able to display the evidence that you have to provide to the judge. Also, there is a process to a landlord evicting you, and they will go further into that later on in this session. But a landlord can't just give you a letter and say, I want you off my property. A landlord can't verbally tell you that they want you off their property. There is a process to that. You, as a tenant, are allowed to write statements to the landlord and inform him, I do not want you present in my home when I'm not around. I do not want you, you or your maintenance man to be able to allow in my home if I'm not around. And if you have issues, it should always be in writing. Any issues you have within your home while you're in a contract with the landlord, you should always put it in writing, because that is what holds up in court. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Yeah, so landlords are still trying to evict folks during the moratorium. There, like Kennard said earlier, there are two moratoriums. There's a local moratorium for St. Louis, Missouri, which ends October the 1st. Am I correct, Kennard? The 1st of October. And then the federal moratorium that ends December the 31st. It is important that you all continue to pay on your rent, because your rent will continue to accumulate along with your late fees. And if you're already behind, imagine what that's going to look like at the end of the year. So it is important that you continue to pay your rent and your utilities. I know that there are different orgs that is assisting folks with rental assistance right now. So if you can apply, do so and see if you qualify. Also, within a lease, a tenant is able to, if a landlord doesn't, once a tenant notifies a landlord of the issues within the home, and the landlord has so many days, you need to be clear by this day, I will follow through with repairing whatever the issue is and take it out of my rent. Now, when you take money out of your rent, it can be up to $300 or half of your rent. Whatever you're repairing should only be up to $300 or half of your rent. It cannot be more than that. You cannot say, I'm going to withhold this rent and put it in my banking account. Anything you withhold from the landlord needs to be put into escrow. Any rent you withhold from the landlord needs to be put into escrow. Escrow is a secured account with an organization that is able to hold it, or a secure account with the courts that will hold the rent until a judgment is found against you or the landlord. Whoever the judge decides that is the receiver of what's being held, that's who will be paid. So if the judgment is against you, then the landlord will be paid. If the judgment is against the landlord, you will receive the funds that you will receive the money that has been withheld.
I have a question, Maisha.
Yes.
So when you're withholding rent, don't you have to get, and if it's for like a repair issue or something like that, do you have to get like an inspector in order to like in order to get like a report, a written report or something about, you know, why that it's a habitability issue before you withhold rent?
So if the landlord doesn't respond within a timely manner, I will reach out to the building department, the city building department, and they will come out and look at and see if it's habitable. And that you can have them write up a statement. Also, withholding rent, you need estimates as well to say that that job does cost that much for you to make that repair. But yes, there are divisions within St. Louis City that you can report to, which is the health department and the city building inspector. Does anyone else have any questions?
I think
also, go ahead, Ron, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I just wanted to like, yeah, see if whether with the evictions, I just really wanted to like kind of note that there are two types of evictions. There are rent and possession, which is the most that you know, that landlords take. Rent and possession is just, you know, you're behind on rent, and then there's an unlawful detainer as well. So in the unlawful detainer is when you overstay the lease.
Yes, and there's two type of leases. There can be an oral contract between the landlord and the tenant, and those are usually based on month-to-month basis. And there's a written lease that sometimes are month-to-month, but most of the time are annually, or you know, a longer contract between the tenant and the landlord. Always make sure that when leaving a space that you take pictures to assure that if any damages are made when you move out, that you did not do that, and that the place was clean, so you can receive your security deposit. And landlord, it has 30 days after a tenant moves out to get them their deposit. If you have this issue, you can file a judgment, a small claims against the landlord, and sue for your security deposit. And a security deposit within a contract between a landlord and a tenant should not be more than 2 months of the rent.
Can I ask a quick question? Just because I want to know, I'm coming, son. When to sue a landlord, legal services, who provides these attorneys? How are people supposed to get these attorneys?
So you have to reach out to the landlords. They cannot reach out to you. I mean, reach out to the lawyers. I'm sorry. Because it looks like they're soliciting you if they reach out to you. So you will have to contact the landlords, the lawyers that are available. And it would be EHOC, which is Equal Housing Opportunity Council. And I can get you this information, Carmen, if you like me to. And Arch City Defenders, Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. And what is it? Who is it you work for, Juan? They also help with legal services.
Yeah, I work for Catholic Legal Assistance Ministry. We mostly focus on the immigrant and indigenous community, but we do take, we don't have like the legal power that EHOC or Legal Services Eastern Missouri and Arch City Defenders have, though. I'm gonna put their numbers in the chat, though.
Please, yeah,
Thank
we
you,
have a lot
Ron.
of people that are like either in like really back rent situations or are like at threat of eviction. So, especially in our UNDOC and community. So, but there's a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a good segue to probably go into the national moratorium, and then probably start engaging with everybody and seeing what they're seeing from the community.
Can I ask you a quick question first?
Yeah.
I'm curious about this like past eviction. So people have gotten evicted and then they owe back rent or they owe back utilities, and there was a situation like where like things were uninhabitable or the landlord, like they have documents of like the landlord not responding to like repair requests. Is that something that can be handled retroactively, or they're going to be responsible for that rent, having it on the record? Or is that a situation where you contract the lawyers as well?
So with that, what a lot of folks don't know, when going through eviction, they can ask for a trial. So if you ever feel like during an eviction process that you're not being treated fair, like I said, you can file a small claims against the landlord or a countersuit to prove your evidence, show your evidence to the judge. But if they're already been evicted, that they may have to take the landlord back to court to sue for, to prove that they wasn't responsible for whatever the damages were. That's kind of hard because a lot of folks choose to self-evict as well. So sometimes it's not just the landlord evicting them. They feel like, I don't have the money to pay him, so I'm going to move. And what tends to happen is it goes onto their credit and also
Yeah.
puts them on CaseNet. And go
I
ahead.
think there's also like situations where like there's an infestation of bugs and they don't deal with it, or there's like in the whole building, or there's like situations where there was repairs that just never got made and like the person self-evicts. And then the problem is that ends up being something that they carry with them for a long time that impacts their ability to get the next rental, or even to have a home in the future. And so I think that that's the thing that I'm seeing most often is people that are self-evicting in advance of getting evicted because of, like a lot of people have roaches, or like this building was infested with bed bugs, like, or this one person had a flooded kitchen for 2 months. Like, I mean, there's so many people in that situation. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the area that it gets messy in that area because there's nothing really there to secure those folks that choose to walk away from the property. It just becomes more of a mess for them. It's hard for them to find a space and clean up their credit because they've gotten so far behind. That is something that we're trying to address as we come up with a tenant bill of rights, because there is none for St. Louis, Missouri. And also housing policy that will be sustainable during and after COVID. That's why we need you guys to be part of these conversations. So as a community, we can come to a consensus decision on what that is.
Cool. I think we can move into the national moratorium if you want to cover that, Sharon.
Sure, I'll go through the national moratorium. So first things first, the national moratorium is until December 31st. And it applies where there is not a more protective state moratorium in effect, like in Missouri. It applies to all rental units nationwide. So it's not the same as the moratorium that was issued and ended in July, where only units that were under federal funding were protected. So this protects all rental units, and no matter whether they receive federal funding or not, landlords cannot evict tenants for rental non-payment. And that's an important point, is rental non-payment, because as Juan said, there's more than one way to be evicted. Tenants are eligible if A, their income is less than $99,000, or B, they did not have to pay income tax in 2019, or C, they received a stimulus check. And tenants must declare their inability to pay rent, that they sought out assistance, and that they will become homeless if evicted. And tenants must submit a declaration form that's provided by the CDC to the landlord. Tenants still owe rent and can be evicted for reasons other than non-payment of rent, and landlords can still charge late fees. And that's one of the conversations that we've been having as a collective, is how to deal with landlords who will try to evict tenants based on, or try to evict tenants in ways that aren't about non-payment of rent. So,
You mind if I hop in real quick, Sharon?
sure.
Just on that note, just so folks know, so that moratorium, it does have loopholes in it. And one thing that we're anticipating is seeing an increase in nuisance complaints. So in lieu of people being able to be evicted through the normal process, we're anticipating seeing a lot of nuisance complaints get put in for properties, which can be for a whole number of things. Those also are submitted through the Citizen Service Bureau. So you may see an increase in noise complaints or things like that in order to get people out of their homes. So if you're, when we get into the section about things that you're seeing, we'd be very interested in hearing more things about that, because the way those work usually is if a property collects too many of them, the property is then closed and the landlord actually cannot have somebody in that property. So it's basically another way to evict people.
Right. So a couple of more things that pertaining to the national moratorium. Penalties for landlord violation include over $100,000 for individuals, $200,000 for corporations, and/or jail time. So the federal government, well, I would say the federal government is serious about this, but I guess we will see about how these fines and jail time will be, how they'll be distributed. Mass Access has created an online tool that will assist with creating and sending a declaration to your landlord property management email address. So we also have the declarations. Juan has put them in the chat, and the declarations read as followed. Like, you've used your best effort to obtain government assistance, that you won't earn more than $99,000, that you can't pay rent because you've lost household income, lost work or wages, you've been laid off, or you've had extraordinary out-of-pocket medical expenses, that you're trying your best to make partial payments, and that if you are evicted, you'll be homeless. So those are some of the things that are, those are like the checklists that you have to fulfill, if you will, in order to fill out this declaration and submit it to the landlord. And we're thinking that you can also submit it to a property manager. Does anyone have any questions about the moratorium?
Yeah, do y'all know how this is gonna work? Like who enforcement is, what part of court it's gonna be a part of, if they do anything with the claims that people who are being evicted make? Like, is this real?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't know if the people who made it know how they plan on it working. I think we're still waiting on some guidance on how that's supposed to work as far as the enforcement and reporting on that enforcement. Since how, like, if it's $100,000 fine, it seems like a pretty hefty thing to be able to levy on somebody without having any clear process on it. So I think we're still kind of waiting on figuring out how that's supposed to work. But as it is right now, I think that the sheriff's office is also supposed to handle issues with illegal lockouts, I believe. Juan or Maisha, correct me if I'm wrong.
They're supposed to. We had discussion in the housing protection meeting on Tuesdays on re-educating the police department and the sheriff departments on illegal lockouts, that they can prevent them and how they can prevent them, and they're supposed to be preventing them. So Kalila at EHOC is willing to get some information together for us to get to the police department. And I believe EHOC and our city are going to be in discussion of what that's going to look like on re-educating the city officials and legislators on the housing, because they said in the rural areas that the legislators said they didn't know much about the housing crisis that's going on. So yeah, they are talking about re-educating the police department on how they can stop illegal lockouts.
Yeah, just to go off of Maisha, they're supposed to like be doing like a briefing every morning with the police officers on, with the police officers, you know, there was a one-page something that Legal Services of Eastern Missouri had written up, and that's supposed to be in the morning briefings. And also, so like to Sarah's question, like the enforcement of these penalties, so tenants, that's going to be coming out during the court process. During the court process, and so while people do not have to prove of their hardship, this may come out during court when landlords challenge that. And with the landlords, the CDC has empowered like attorney generals and local DA's office to enforce their obligation to honor this thing. And but so I know that it's already been challenged in Georgia, this CDC federal moratorium, and so it's really going to be testing the soundness of the CDC national moratorium, and seeing you know, if it's going to be upheld. So yeah, it's to be seen.
And quick question before we move on also, Sharon, when you were reading all of that really helpful information about what makes people eligible and all of that, could we find that on the moratorium fact sheet, or what would be the best place for people to go to get all that information that you just said?
We can create a document and send it. I got it from a document that Casey's tenants sent out.
Okay, great. Or even if you can plop it in the notes, I just want to make sure that in my note taking, I don't miss any of those important kind of qualifying things for being eligible. Or in the chat.
I think that tool is really helpful as well. Someone correct me, it's mass something that folks did. What is that called?
Mass access.
Thank you. The mass access tool, like that's pretty helpful. It has a lot of the stuff and has like the declaration that a person would have to present to their landlord or get to their landlord.
What I just put in the chat it's a longer document, but it has in there the declaration itself and the qualifications for the declaration. So you can find it there.
Thank you.
But I can put together
all those links, right, from the National Low Income Housing Coalition had done a fact sheet. So that includes all of that information, Lou, and as well as the Spanish and all the ones that have been translated. Those include the declaration forms as well. But be pleased, if you all are talking to people or have been talking to people about this and encouraging them to submit it to their landlord, I think it's being kind of, for example, the mass access online tool, there's been some glitches. And so it's probably best to use like the original CDC template. And I can also plug that in into the chat.
And I'm keeping track of all these links and stuff as well in our notes. So Lou is writing them down, and then I added a little section called links and resources. It has all the phone numbers, organizations, the tenant rights guide, and stuff on the moratorium as well.
Cool. Did you get through the declarations, Sharon, on what that?
Yes.
Cool. So, yeah, generally for this next part, we'd be interested in hearing about what you all think and what you've been seeing in the community and in your pods as a whole. Through, you know, the lawyers and stuff, we hear a lot about different things, and through some of our rapid response folks, we hear a lot about different things, but I'm really curious to see what you all have been seeing and hearing in the community.
I have one
Yes.
thought. Sorry, go ahead.
Yesterday, I met with Integrated Health, and they work with homebound folks, and they were telling me that there was one of their clients that is homebound. The landlord continues to allow them to put rent in the banking account, but is still following through with the eviction. So that's something that I wanted us to look into this week, or maybe next week.
Go ahead, Katie.
One thing I was thinking about is how this feels when I'm on a hotline call and how overwhelming a lot of this information feels. I know for a fact it would help a lot of hotline callers if some of us can get together, you know, this week or next, and like if some sort of flow chart where, you know, if you're in the county, like of steps. I think that's super helpful. This is a lot of information, and I think for every single person on the hotline to know every detail of this is certainly helpful if they're willing to take the time to learn it. One of the things I'm thinking about right now is I haven't been hearing back from a lot of people about how this is going for them. So when I talk to people through my pod or through the hotline, I'm not getting a lot of like what happens after I get connected. And I think it would be really valuable if there are any stories or testimonials that could help show people that like there is actually help out there and what it looks like to receive that assistance, and what happens next if you do successfully prevent an eviction or repair an issue with a landlord.
I don't know who that was just speaking, but she is reading my mind as I'm also trying to understand the attorney piece, and I can speak to, not that I have an addiction issue, but I know people who have these issues and still even trying to connect to legal services in these different entities. There are breakdowns in the gap. So when we get to the back end, we have those success stories. What does that look like in real time, and how are we closing in to make sure all the pieces work for the community that we're serving? So whoever that was, you hit everything up, and thank you.
Carmen, it was a little bit hard to hear you, and I just want to make sure I'm documenting that right. Were you saying that you want to second the call for what steps would look like in real time and having a clear set of steps for people to follow?
Yes, I am saying that. The lady who was speaking, I think she hit everything that I was thinking, as I was still trying to understand the attorney piece. And I understand we also listen and things like that, but even when you're reaching out, there seems to be a break in communication from the community person standpoint. Are they understanding all of the information? Do they understand all of the steps? Do they know everything that they're supposed to be doing? And then when we get to the back end of what that awesome woman who was speaking before me was saying, how do we know that all the steps was hit? What is the testimony behind that? And how do we close sure that the next person that we help has that support the same way. Now on my end, just from the attorney standpoint of when I needed to reach out for different reasons, I just don't feel that connection is almost like a break for me when trying to connect to that piece to get the services done. So
Okay. Lou, what I heard was that when she reaches out to the legal services, that there is a gap between how they're communicating with one another, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carmen, that she feels that the issue doesn't get addressed immediately because of the communication gap.
Hitting the head on the head, the nail on the head. There's either a communication gap, or maybe me, I'm just going to put the hat on of a customer. Maybe I'm not communicating correctly. Maybe they are, because I'm not communicating correctly, they're saying that the services are not available. There's a breakdown somewhere, and we need to figure out what that looks like for the community people that we're servicing. Like we can't solicit, but we can teach. There's a teaching piece that's missing.
Yeah. So the follow-up with folks on when we give them resources that so that's what I stated. When we give folks resources, we need to follow up with them and make sure that their needs were met. Because what I usually do with my tenants is if I give them resources and they call me back and say, Miss Maisha, this is what they told me, I will call myself to see if they tell me the same thing or if I get the same response that they got, just to make sure if that's a resource that I should continue to send folks to. So maybe that's something we need to start doing, is following up with the resources that we're giving out to folks.
I just wanted to kind of just chime in, I guess, because I do work at a legal agency, and there is a disconnect between what's going on the ground and grassroots kind of level, and then connecting those folks to those legal agencies because we're still trying to get I know that EHOC is still trying to get their eviction defense program up on the ground, and they're a little bit ahead of where I am at with my program. And EHOC has a little bit more of an eviction defense legal team, and so what I mean to say is that there is a kind of like an attorney-client privilege there with that information, and limited to what we are able to communicate with people that try to connect potential clients to legal agencies, but that's more of like, more of like on the details of things, but in what I'm trying to say is, like, there is a real disconnect even between legal agencies of when they're trying to figure out where people can go and what agencies want to specialize in, and we're still trying to figure that out ourselves, because it is just such a mess. Everything is so messy, and trying to connect people with not only housing assistance and rental assistance, but also trying to figure out what's going on with between them and their landlord, and what is the best course of action, and so there is no real pretty answer. So what's needed is, maybe more of communication with the legal agency once they have like that kind of communication between them kind of set up, and maybe it needs to be like more community training sessions on especially specifically on specific topics like the CDC national moratorium, or what is the best way to connect them with their services. So.
And I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier that I didn't know about until kind of recently, which is that, these legal agencies can't contact tenants directly because they can't solicit people. And so we really need to be encouraging people to call them. So that's, I think, a big thing that mutual aid could be doing, as well as what Katie and Carmen were saying, really following up with people after we refer them to something to like make sure it's actually working or to figure out where it's not working.
And if mutual aid, sorry.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I just think on the front end, as our community, STL Mutual Aid, we have the ability to do some real.
You're cutting out, Carmen. It's pretty hard to hear you. Yeah. Hopefully we can get your audio coming back soon.
She was saying through mutual aid, we can get some real resources, get the feedback so we can know if they're accurate resources that we're giving to folks. Am I right, Carmen?
Carmen, if you turn your video off, Carmen, if you turn your video off, the sound might get a little bit better. So your computer isn't, or your phone isn't using as much data.
What I was saying was, hopefully you can hear me. Julia, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly
It's
what
really
I mean.
choppy. We can hear your voice, but it's like hard to hear what you're saying.
I will type in later, but you guys are hitting my point. That's all.
Thank you.
And so I just kind of want to like go in like where the collective can kind of really clue in with the mutual aid and what is needed, and if it's like if there are any ideas for next steps to get this CDC national moratorium into as many hands as possible, and maybe like organize around maybe doing some flyering or in your specific neighborhoods, or if there's support needed to do that, or if there are any other ideas on next steps of what we could be doing on like advocacy on the local level, for example, or for example, like getting landlords to like do an oath or a pledge to never evict their tenant. And that was more of like Kennard's brainchild. He like called it a campaign of humanity or whatever. I don't know. And so if he wants to kind of talk on that.
Yeah, would love to. Yep.
Is that the name of your board game?
I'm never.
Campaign of Humanity. He called it Campaign of Humanity.
Campaign of Humanity.
Y'all are not gonna let me live it down. So anyway, the idea behind that was trying to get commitments or kind of an oath signed from landlords. I mean, like at the end of the day, like they're the property owner and it's this person's property, but also there's a real threat right now. Like the threat of people losing their housing in a pandemic will only increase the spread of the disease and put more lives at risk. So with that, we were just kind of like thinking of ways to like empower people, but also like get these landlords to like kind of engage themselves with the human aspect of, you know, like you are doing this to somebody in your community, another person that's living in this building. So with that, we were just trying to get like commitments out of landlords and like just room for thinking about that, commitments out of landlords to get them to commit to, I think we had said not evicting people for non-payment of rent or trying to come up with some kind of, you know, other reason to evict them when the real reason at the end of the day is for non-payment of rent. And with that, we also talked about some conversations of making like a list of bad landlords. Like when people get evicted, and like this is like another piece of this, when people get evicted, it makes it harder for you to rent again each time you get evicted. A lot of places nowadays use tenant screening apps and things like that. and you basically kind of get blacklisted a little bit when you get evicted from a place, and it continually makes it harder and harder for people to find stable housing. So with that, we're trying to get light on, who these bad landlords are, who's like processing, the most evictions, and ways to, kind of publicly shame them and put pressure on them to stop from doing that. A lot's going on in this chat. I see people's faces. But that was generally the idea around that, so we can kind of get some oaths out of landlords and put thought into how we can pressure some folks into not evicting people. So that can be, publishing like this list of bad landlords, rolling out lists of who's been having the highest amounts of evictions. Like I mentioned Sandstone earlier, but there are others. And, there are ways to track that. And, like a lot of these land property owners and corporate landlords and stuff actually got federal money at the beginning of the pandemic. Like a lot of these corporations and stuff, I'll keep using Sandstone because they're garbage, but they got $5 million of PPP money. $5 million. So, what are we doing paying our tax dollars into the hands of these corporate entities to just put people out on the street, right? So part of that is, like holding these people accountable, and, it's like a basic duty is, being taxpayers, right? Like we don't pay taxes to, keep these property agency companies running so they can keep putting people out in the street and just kind of run this mill. So that was where that idea came from. What else we got on here? We're getting closer to the end here, but we're going to be hosting another meeting. What is that, you guys? Did we say next Thursday or the 24th?
I think, was it next Thursday? I think it was next Thursday.
Okay.
Sarah, yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking at next Thursday at 6 p.m. We'll be hosting a general body meeting to just kind of go over some like hard action steps that we're planning for making moves around. Getting these, like how to get these commitments, how to like get this informative system of telling people about these bad landlords, and also like how we're going to further engage like our targets around what we're going to do about this. Because right now, as long as the courts are still processing things, as long as the mayor's office is still, giving out these orders for evictions, as long as the sheriff's office is still actively evicting people, there are very local and reachable people and targets here to for us to disrupt the displacement process.
We all have details on that meeting, so it's Thursday the 17th.
At 6 p.m.
Okay, 6 p.m.
And a Zoom link will be made.
Yeah, I think just in terms of what's next or how we can plug in, like keeping open communication is going to be really important, because like you guys said, everything's really messy and it's really, everything changes from month to month. So it's really hard to say like, here's exactly what people should be doing right now. But I think there are lots of people who want to help on both ends. And Juan has been doing a great job of like sharing updates as you guys get them with us. And I think we want to be more open and participating and also like sharing information, especially if you all are going to start having open meetings. We really want to encourage people to go.
And I want to mention, like, because there's been a lot of comments about the unhoused, and that is, something that's just so desperately needed right now. I mean, last 2 weekends ago, I met a family, and they were illegally evicted, and they were living in their car, and they had a 4-month-old baby, and so, and 2 other kids, and and one of the boy has hearing issues as well, And so it's heartbreaking when, you know, when you can't do anything, but you can only provide just the, you know, what you can, and you want to get them legal services, but you know, it's even that it's challenging, and so if you wanted really to plug in with, you know, on housing, there's a lot of advocacy and a lot of organizing going on with Tent Mission, and so I really want to raise them up too, because they do just incredible work in doing outreach and advocacy on all those levels.
Cool. I think that does it for us here. Julia, do you have anything else you'd like to say to folks?
No, thank you all so much for taking the time, and I hope that we can, yeah, I just want to figure out what the next ways for us to communicate are. So if are all of the housing, like all of the Housing Defense Collective folks, are you all okay with being added to mutual aid communications and things like that? So, okay, great. Yeah, I can definitely get that going. Sharon, I might need your info. But other than that, thank you all. Does anyone else have anything they want to say?
Yeah, thanks for having this. It's really helpful, especially all the new information about the national moratorium.
Thanks y'all for coming into this session. Really appreciate it, and talking to more folks about this. I mean, you hear about it in the news, but I don't think people really understand how big the problem is and what magnitude of a problem we're looking at moving into the fall.
All right, thank you all. Feel free to leave if you need to. We'll have a whole 5 minutes break before the next session starts, so you can stick around if you like, or take a break and come back. Do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank St. Louis Mutual Aid as well for giving us this kind of spot,
Yes.
and raising up this issue, and for everything that, you know, all of the people are doing, community, helping community, and all that stuff, all that good stuff.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.